That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And welcome to a very special 25th anniversary retrospective on the second Pixar feature film, A Bug's Life. That's right, Dragon. I gotta tell you guys, this movie was just a big ol' big old splash of nostalgia just watching over me revisiting this thing, man. Dragon, we forget how big of a deal this thing was at the time because, of course, a lot of other Pixar movies kind of came along to overshadow it. But man, rewatching it, it's like I like honestly, the memories came flooding back of just how much of a big deal it was to see that many characters on screen at the same time. It didn't matter if they were all copy and pasted of the same design. The scale on this thing was massive, man. And not only that, but rewatching this, I think the character work is on point. Maybe it doesn't have that like quintessential like dynamic relationship like Buzz and Woody, but I think all the side characters are. I mean, I don't know, Dragon. For my money, they almost might be better than the Toy Story crew, at least in the first Toy Story movie, just because they don't have like the pettiness that the Toy Story crew does. So yeah, I quite like this revisiting this. I have a ton of nostalgia for it, of course. Dragon, do you remember the VHS tape varieties that they had?
Well, when you say varieties,
I mean, like when this came out, it would like there were like three or four different like there was like a Heimlich box and a Hopper box and a Flick box.
uh well, I mean, I remember they did kind of marketing. They did boxes, VHS boxes, a little like that, but I don't. I didn't know they did them for all the characters. I thought
I
there
don't
was
think it
maybe.
was all the characters. I want to say it was like three or
Well,
four of
I,
them.
I just mean
I
like the
know Flick,
select.
Hopper, and Heimlich. I
Are
know
you sure
those
Flick
three.
wasn't just like kind of something like the image that we're seeing now? Are you sure, was that just
No,
Flick? Or
it was exactly the image that we're seeing now. That's what I'm saying.
oh,
But
okay.
I'm also saying that like the Heimlich one was kind of like in this style, except it was Heimlich peering through the
Well, I don't
leaves.
know if Hopper would have made the cut, but it probably would have been Francis instead of Hopper. It'd probably be Francis, Flick, and Heimlich. Those probably would have been the three go tos.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right.
Except for my memory.
So yeah, I've got a ton of nostalgia for this thing. Revisiting it really kind of gave me a new appreciation for it. Guys, I see y'all in the comments. We'll shout you out really quick. But Dragon, just really quick, give us your kind of like overall take on this movie.
So yeah, it's interesting looking back on a Bugs Life. I've always had an appreciation for Bugs Life because similarly, I have the old VHS nostalgia for it as well. Just it was the early years. It was very much you had Stephen Ray theatrically. Toy Story 2 was like my big like foray into to kind of paraphrase my co-host here. This is a movie sort of moment. This is kind of like
To
now this is
be
like
fair, I stole that bit from the specifically from the What the Flick review of Steve Jobs of all things.
well, essentially, Toy Story 2 was very much like my blockbuster. It was my real introduction to Pixar on the big screen. But of course, there's no Toy Story 2 for me without the first movie. And it's like, oh my god, I love that Toy Story movie. As a kid, I went nuts for it. Like, well, the boy obviously loves like this Toy Story movie. Who made this? Okay, Pixar. What else do they have? A Bug's Life. Let's throw that at them. And I, I ate it up, man. I loved it. It was very much like you had like this ultimate kind of sampling of early Pixar. You had Toy Story, and then you had A Bug's Life. And you had the two shorts between them.
Uh huh. Uh
Then
huh.
plus with the VHS tapes, you had a little bit of making of in the back of the VHS tapes for them
One of the
specifically
first
Toy Story.
VHS tapes to include that stuff. Yeah.
The Toy Story specifically. Again, I don't want to gush too much about Toy Story here, but we are in that early era, and it does factor in things. So we kind of have to talk at least about the first one a little bit here. But I remember like the seeing the test footage of Buzz and Woody back when it was like the ventriloquist cowboy and Tempest from Morph, and it blew my mind. And there was something just kind of like awe inspiring about it.
uh,
Anyway, so with the Bugs Life though, it's it's very early, very core Pixar. I talked about this elsewhere, but where we're at with Pixar currently, we kind of have I label it as 4 eras, but some people might label it as like a good 3 act structure. But again, it's ever growing, so I don't know how much that's going to maintain itself. Basically, you have like the pre-Disney era, which is from Toy Story to Cars. You have post-Disney, which is Ratatouille to Toy Story 3.
That
You know,
sounds about
basically
right. Yeah.
basically like V height, and then you have
Right.
then we have kind of like Cars 2 to Toy Story 4, which is kind of like the kind of the Lasseter kind of era before 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 we change things over to basically the pandemic era, which I'd kind of
Yeah, I
call
think
it.
the pandemic era is a clear cutoff point. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That's basically when things kind of take a shift there. So I mean, I kind of I like to trim it off the Toy Story 4 because I was like kind of big kind of boon. It was a big gamble, and it essentially it paid off. And then we have like we get into the onwards of it all, where it's like hey, this is well, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked here with the pandemic. So my point being is you have these eras of Pixar. So this is going back to the very beginning with it. So if you look at it, reflecting 25 years later, it has a very skeletal structure of the early days of Pixar, where they're really kind of figuring things out. It's a stepping stone for a lot of the things to come. Looking back on, like you can definitely see we don't get Monsters Inc. or Finding Nemo without really figuring stuff
Oh,
out and
most
seeing like
definitely. Most definitely. This was that's the thing that really still stands up with this film is that you can just see the technological like leaps and bounds being pushed above Toy Story with this.
and I think it's very telling that most studios you get the sense of okay we had a big hit like we've struck basically we've struck it out on our own to an extent we've obviously they're distributing through Disney but the point being is we've made a name for ourselves most studios be like this made a whole lot of money people love it let's make more money let's do the sequel right now it's like no we're gonna make sure that this wasn't like lightning striking we don't want to risk like making this movie we really loved and put our hearts and soul into look bad so
Would
before we
basically be
really
Illumination's model.
well I don't know about that because with the whole they Despicable Me 2 didn't kind of right after Despicable Me that's the difference.
Wasn't it like Hop and then Despicable Me too, though?
Well that's what I'm saying though
I
my
mean,
point.
like A Bug's Life is a far better second movie than Hop Dragon.
Well, yeah, but Hop wasn't completely computer animated, though. That's the difference.
Well, that's what I'm
That's the
saying
point.
though. It's like I'm pretty sure Blue Sky was like Hop, like Despicable Me, then Hop, then Despicable Me too. It's like, anyways.
Well, anyway, like, not Blue Sky, but yes. Anyway, my point is that we're not just charging into like the sure bet. Like we're really testing ourselves. See, do we have what it takes to be a movie studio that would be on par, if not surpass Disney for the most part there. So it's something really interesting that we get to see like the inklings of Monsters Inc. Finding of being like the non-Toy Story films that also, of course, were mega successful and just really good movies that stood the test of time and are anniversary worthy. So this Bugs Life's always been a delightful comedy that has a really good heart to it. It's core Pixar. Core Pixar is looking at our world in a way that we've never thought of before, which you can look at again. We see it from a toy's perspective, see it from a bug's
Which
perspective,
honestly, I
from
think A
monsters.
Bug's Life might be like that philosophy in its purest form.
That's what I'm saying, Tiki. So this is them really figuring out who they are, and especially in this early era of like all the early Pixar films are essentially Incredibles being a bit of an offshoot there, but essentially we're looking at the
Well, The
world from
Incredibles is like more of a Brad Bird movie
well,
than a
that's what
Pixar
yeah. So
movie. It's kind of like
Incredibles
how
is
the Guardians movies are more James Gunn movies than MCU movies.
well, I guess the way of looking at it is Brad Bird's movies. Honestly, both for Pixar were always kind of carryovers from other projects where
Uh-huh.
he
Uh-huh.
had the Incredibles kind of formed in his head before he brought it over to Pixar. And Ratatouille was, well, interestingly, connects to Bug's Life, or the director of Jerry's Game initially pitched Ratatouille.
Uh-huh.
Like he was the initial director on that, so there's a lot of connective issue there, I guess. Anyway, you see what I mean? So like, it's always like, okay, how can we look at the world? Basically, it's like before Incredibles, we can't really do humans all that well, with very few exceptions. How can we kind of broach this and also come at it from a really interesting way that most studios would not or very much do, like kind of like a, hey, it's going to be anthropomorphized animals because we don't want to do humans either. So it's we do this through charming and just extremely watchable character work, characterization, and there's just something. Sometimes it's not a great explanation. Sometimes there's just something pure about it that is like Pixar's take on a fable. It's Pixar's take on the
Yeah,
grasshopper and
totally,
ant
totally.
fable, and we applied just kind of what we love about Pixar to that fable and made it something that is very unique. It has good moral to it. It's told with style, to paraphrase a little bit Toy Story there. And one last thing I want to note, just so I don't forget about it. Looking back on this film, it occurred to me that this film is there's kind of a meta component to this film. It's very much Pixar, as you remember from the Pixar story. They talked about the Apple, the Apple comparison, right? The whole second
Sure.
product syndrome. So in that respect, a big thing in this film is that Flick is an inventive guy, and he has really good ideas that really serve the plot. But everyone's kind of in doubt on it because of who he is, and he's really green, and a lot of his stuff is kind of screwed up. It's kind of like it's kind of crashed and burned initially because again he was really overeager and everything. So I think there's a lot of the studio looking at the fears of telling this story, the fears of the fear of failure, essentially.
I
The
can
having
see that. Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
feels like there's a theme of having confidence in your idea and overcoming the fear of the fear of failing and crashing and burning with like, hey, here's an idea that's not the patented success that Toy Story was. Let's try this, and just the anxiety of making that into the film. It's like, yeah.
I mean, up until this point, I don't really think there was ever a like a major animated movie that just featured bugs. I'm pretty sure. Well, of course, Katzenberg came along and it's like,
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there, of course. But
I'm gonna build to that.
we had short films. We've had like for example, Thumbelina was like we had a couple insects in that movie, but by and large, we like you said, this is pretty much just an adaptation of the that ant fable, the ant and the grasshopper.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, the Aesop's Fable. Yeah.
Anyways, Dragon, before we get into backstory, and also really quick, because you mentioned the flick thing, Dragon, I don't know about you, but it is impossible for me to watch this movie now with the flick arc and not think of jury duty. It's impossible. It's just straight.
Well, at least it's a good pull, though. At least
No,
everyone's
it's a
jury is
great
really
pool.
great.
But what I love about it is that just by the nature of that show, it's like that's not even something that anyone written. It was literally just like a connection that the actual guy made. Like it's such a great like real life, thing.
Yeah.
Anyways. All right, so just pull up some comments here. Z and K says the first Pixar movie I ever saw in theaters. Didn't see Toy Story because I was just a year old. Frequently repeat viewings instead, which was just as great. Yeah,
Similar like
I did
experience
not
there.
see this in theaters, but I did see Toy Story in theaters, and I don't really have a good explanation for why I didn't see this one in theaters. Okay, Code Geass says which film is better, Bugs Life or Ants?
The fact that you have to ask Code Geass, anime fan, just astonished.
I think that Ants is an interesting movie for its social commentary. Like I do think like my economy teacher actually showed it in that class, and I think it is actually pretty valuable in that through that lens. Like there is a lot of interesting kind of like class warfare type stuff going on there. But yeah, Bugs Life is clearly like the better animated, better characters, pretty much all the way around better movie.
I mean, look, I want to be very clear. Ants is not a bad movie, but if you're comparing the two, I think it stands to reason that Bugs Life didn't. At the end of the day, Bugs Life, we don't need to bring in like the whole Insectopia thing. We don't need to bring in like a giant human walking through there and trouncing around the place in shoes and like swatting like the wasp. Like we don't have to
giant product placement.
That's what I'm saying. It feels like there's something
Which,
less
ironically
commercial.
enough, as a kid, actually sold me on Ants.
So that's the thing. Bugs Life, I think is more. I think there's something more to respect about Bugs Life, where we didn't need to go commercial, and we also didn't need to like. We're in an existing insect world. Where we're applying logic to the insect world versus like it's our world, but with bugs. That's the difference to me. That's the thing. We had a little bit of it with the bug bar, but even then, it's all logical logic, which is what Pixar excels at. Where Ants is just like, oh, this is clever, and it is clever. It's basically it's a New Yorker cartoon as an animated movie, which is cute, but it's not.
All right. Theme Park Priest says I've always wanted to be an ant. Anyways, I think Bugs Life stands the test of time better than Ants, which yeah, I would agree on.
Yeah.
Little Blue in the comments saying this is also the first computer animated film to be widescreen.
Yep, that was a big boon for this one. That was, and they kind of learned on Toy Stories, like, well, can we fix this?
Let's see. Gonna skip a couple of these just so we can kind of double back around to them. Z and K says it's sad that it's gained an unfortunate it's okay reputation.
And you were one of those guys, Tiki.
No, you're right. I was, but at the same time, it's like I feel like there's a big difference from like this. I think this is like I have a newfound appreciation for it rewatching it. That being said, I still think like out of all the golden era Pixar stuff, it's still probably the most okay out of all of them. It's just is what it is. It's it's still a diamond, but it's the diamond philosophy with Pixar.
Yeah, we have two philosophies of Pixar. It's the well, mainly it's one when they kind of refurbish it with the totem pole thing, but essentially, yes, it's like Lee Unkrich editing Tom Hanks in Toy Story. They're all diamonds, but in some cases, it's gonna be smaller diamonds, maybe scuffed up, but they're still a freaking diamond. It's.
I mean, what I was gonna say is there's a big difference between like this movie being like the most like really good but not particularly great of the golden era of Pixar versus like Forgive Me Dragon, like a movie like off the top of my head like Lightyear, where it's very much just for me just painfully average in almost every aspect. So that's the difference.
No.
Okay, Z&K does remember the 5 varieties. He said they had Flick, Dot,
Yep.
Hopper, Heimlich, and Francis.
Yeah, it's really a hard.
Really trying to sell Dot. I remember that.
No, I know. I have such trouble buying that Hopper got one, but I guess he did. It feels like odd to have the villain on there for the poster.
Hopper had a big presence, man.
No, of course he had a big. I'm just saying from a marketing standpoint, it's kind of odd that, hey kids, watch the movie about the menacing grasshopper.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's also got a huge presence in the It's Tough to Be a Bug as well. I mean, he was a really popular character.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, better than the Toy Story crew. That's a very bold statement. I can't agree because of how memorable characters like Potato Head and Slinky are. I don't think they're as good as like collectively. If you branch the Toy Story crew out, throughout all the movies, then yeah, of course they're better. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know, man. These circus bugs specifically are really damn lovable. Like, you got David Hyde Pierce Dragon. David Hyde Pierce as a stick bug is like our fucking spirit animal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Little Blue says he had the Heimlich box. Let's see. I think we're pretty much Hop is an Easter classic. I've still never actually watched Hop. Yeah, Bug's Life is really solid, but buried in the shadow of Toy Story, pretty much, more or less. Lucas Green, I think he hit it right on the money. Okay, both movies do have problematic characters in them, but at least Bug's Life case, it had a problematic actor as the bad guy instead of the lead character.
Yeah, basically, we're talking Z from Ants and Hopper. So that's kind of like.
I would say between the two of them, honestly, I would probably pick Kevin Spacey.
Really? I mean, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can we not drag real life?
They're both creepy. Don't get me wrong,
right,
but like at least Kevin Spacey like leans into his creepiness.
Okay, can we
like he owns it?
Okay, can we drift a little off the real life stuff? Can we
I'm sorry. Code Chaos says Woody Allen is a problematic one. Yeah. It's a shame because of Bug's Life and is Pixar's underrated masterpiece. Okay, I think we're good, Dragon. I think we're good for now.
So let me hit you with some background.
Go ahead.
Okay, so famously, like a lot of the Era 1 Pixar films, this all started at the Hidden City Cafe, where after the success of Toy Story, we had our brain trust the core 4 guys,
But John, it's lunch.
Yes. John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, Pete Docter, and Joe Ramp, they all went to the Hidden City Cafe, and they was like, well, this was amazing. I mean, what else do you think we could do? And they kind of basically brainstormed. They had the they had the main ideas, which were Bugs Life, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and Wall-E.
Mm.
in that, so again, so they came up with Bugs Life. Originally, it was just called Bugs, and I'm sure I forget if that one ultimately. I know Bugs was in there for the longest time. I forget if it was specifically changed to a Bugs Life because of the Katzenberg thing or not. I think that might have been what happened, but I don't think anyone's going to cop to it. But regardless, his original was called Bugs, and basically the idea for the movie was like, okay, that's a way we can avoid doing humans and do the perspective shift thing we did from Toy Story, and it was like, okay,
And
let's
also, like, I'm assuming it was important for them to do the whole, like, like a lot of characters on screen at the same time, but do it in a relatively easy way.
yeah, and also I think at the end of the day, it's like think about it like kid logic almost. Like, well, bugs are cool. Bugs have cool designs, so let's do that. So Andrew Stanton and Joe Ranft, they really were the ones who developed this. It was basically as an update to the grasshopper and the Aesop fable, the grasshopper and the ant, which is more of like a one-on-one story. So we kind of
Heimlich is
broaden
pretty
that.
much Joe Ramp's, like, avatar, isn't
Yeah.
he?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, secondly would be Wheezy, but Heimlich is the
Uh-huh,
guy.
uh-huh.
Heimlich's the guy. Then the third tier would probably be Red from Cars. But anyway, so the original draft. Speaking of Red, original draft, Flick was an ant named Red, and he was the ring. He was the ringmaster from the circus. Like there was no PT Flea. It was Flick. It was Flick the
Yeah,
Bug.
that's interesting.
So yeah, so he was like part of the circus troupe that went there and essentially got roped into things, and Flick kind of like you stayed behind. I believe is kind of how that original treatment went. Anyway, so when they were going through the story, one real thing that jumped out to Andrew Stanton. Of course, Andrew Stanton's kind of my spirit. He's always been my guy. I love Andrew Stanton so much. And I love that he had this really good idea where it was adding the likability and kind of a redeemability to circus bugs. If I'm right, what happened was probably the circus bugs were a little bit more like maybe a little more opportunistic from Red. The version where Flick was kind of Red, and they probably left
I mean,
during the third
PT
act. Probably,
Flea, just like I
yeah.
mean, I know that it was probably not like a one for one as far as like how the character was going to be represented, but PT Flea is by far the most opportunistic character besides the grasshoppers in this movie.
So I
So,
think if I'm a betting man, I can't say this for I didn't really go back to the full boards for this scene, but I believe it was the circus bugs probably left when they were needed most in the story, and
oh,
Flick,
okay,
aka
okay.
Red, probably stayed behind. Is my guess as to what happened. Anyway, but again, I can't really verify that. Anyway, the point being, Anderson had a lot more likability with the circus bugs, and obviously switched things around with Flick. Got rid of that, added a PT Flea in there, and Bob's your uncle. So Andrew Stanton co-directed this, and it was a really smart move for two reasons: one, to take pressure off John Lasseter directing, and two, to kind of prepare him to step into the directing spot for Nemo ultimately. So it was kind of like a little kind of preparation for Andrew Stanton, kind of putting him in the director chair, kind of a half seas sort of thing. So Pixar, they love to do their research. They watch the documentary Microcosms, which essentially is a bug documentary. It's kind of from the bugs POV, which has a lot of like really cool up close shots of bugs, which I'm sure helped. And most famously, the bug cam.
Yep.
Now, the bug cam essentially is a camera on little Lego wheels. They kind of pulled through like this little, almost like little stretch of like grass in the highway from the Point Richmond location. They were able to like kind of look from the bug's perspective, looking up at all the grass and everything, and that really gave them that was a big help for them. In
That
terms of
also came back around with the design of the California Adventureland, where they had the giant clovers, which
mhm.
I will say really did it really did add to the illusion, especially with the Tower of Terror right there. It really was a great like forced perspective effect.
Oh yeah. So two of the big technical boons that this movie had, aside from just having characters with multiple arms and legs, I'm sure, was they cracked the code on crowd shots. It was a famous story where the crowds team told Laster like we can only put so many characters on the screen. So look, guys, I understand if that's all you can do, and we'll work around it. But I really feel you could push through this, and we could do something really special here. And they did. Ultimately, they over delivered. They came with essentially an equivalent to the simulator. Essentially, it was a crowd simulator. You can plug in like how an ant, there's like almost a universal man that we had in The Incredibles, but a universal ant that could move and can change proportions a little bit. And that's how we get the crowd shots.
Oh,
And Rain was the big one. Rain took
oh
about
man, Dragon. That It's funny you mentioned that because on a rewatch, when I saw The Rain, I actually kind of forgot like how much emphasis they put on it, and like my head almost exploded. I was like, "This, oh my god, this must have been so fucking hard for them."
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
The Rain took him 4 years, Tiki.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it took him 4 years.
I mean, it's like my mind just instantly went to that infamous shot of the milk from Shrek. And it's like that plus 1,000.
So that's the thing. So one, just liquid in general is hard for computer animation, but specifically with rain, you'll notice in the first Toy Story movie, we cheat the rain. We don't see the rain, but we cheat the rain.
Yep.
Because we have the rain starting, and we see it like we do almost like that little thing you can buy or you can put in your house, like the little like waterfall thing. That's essentially what they did for that window and for Sid's room in Toy Story. It's pretty much it's like a 2D effect technically. So it's anyway. So they got a lot of sitcom and TV talent for this. Of course, most notably Dave Foley, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and also side note, Roddy McDowell's last performance. Let's see. So I mentioned the short attached was Jerry's Game. Now, just to kind of economize
one of the most iconic Pixar shorts of all time, I would say.
Yes, so popular he appeared in Toy Story 2. Okay, so the most infamous thing about this movie we got to talk about the famous, infamous ants debacle.
Katzenberg!
Someone call up Tucci. We need him.
Oh my god.
So, seriously, folks, biopic. And Tiki and I, I relished him when we pitched our Disney and Pixar biopics respectively. I did put this scene in my biopic, and I had Stanley Tucci playing Jeffrey Katzenberg, and John Lasseter being played by Stephen Root. So essentially, Jeffrey Katzenberg.
Stephen Root is a good Lasseter. Remind me who you had as Eisner.
I had Dominic. I'm getting his last name right here. Lombardozzi. Remember Kingpin's father from
Kingpin's father, right.
Kingpin's father from Dominic Lombardozzi, I believe it says. Anyway, so he was my Eisner, which I still stand by. He'd be perfect for Michael Eisner. Anyway, so long story short, Jeffrey Katzenberg stole the idea of doing an ant movie from John Lasseter and Andrew Stanton. They came by, they were chummy, especially because Katzenberg greenlit. He tried to almost ruin Toy Story, but he did greenlight it, so there's a little bit of loyalty. There's like, hey, Jeffrey, how's it going? So yeah, you're working on this ants movie. When's it coming out? Essentially, now I want to be very. This isn't just like hearsay. This is David A. Price, really good writer. He wrote this book called The Pixar Touch, where he details a lot of the really cool behind-the-scenes things and the company. I read this actually. I think the last time I went to Florida, I actually read his book. It's really good.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, so and I was riveted reading it on the plane. So essentially, Katzenberg he stole the idea for the movie, and he did this to get back at Disney. So this is when DreamWorks was literally launching with Prince of Egypt. So the idea is like, he and Eisner are in a bit of a match here, where it was like, we want to launch for the big. I mean,
they literally wrote Eisner into Shrek.
Yep,
that's how petty they were.
Oh yeah, so here's essentially how it went down. DreamWorks is going to premiere with Prince of Egypt. They want to do it in November of '98, and they tried strong-arming Pixar into changing Pixar, but I guess overall Disney with the distribution, into changing the release date. Basically, the ultimatum was, look, give us November. Heck, I'll shelve the Ants movie. We may never even do it if you do this for me. Essentially, he was gonna. It really sounds like he was just gonna throw out the entire computer animated movie. Just like, yeah, we'll just shelve again. So he was gonna shelve it, which sometimes means development heck never gets made. So I'll shelve the Ants movie if you give us this date. Just move your release date. And John Lasseter and Andrew Stanton, they were very deeply hurt by this, and they refused. And ultimately, what happened is the most petty thing you've ever heard. So Ants was rushed through production.
Yep.
Like the word is, and this one's not confirmed, the word is Katzenberg incentivized people to work faster so Ants would come out. He might have offered money under the table essentially just to get the movie out faster.
Oh, God.
So the production, so it would release before A Bug's Life. So it released 1 month before A Bug's Life. It came out, I think, October 2nd or something. When Bug's Life comes out, today comes out November 14th. And just to show you how ridiculous this is, DreamWorks has both their big movies coming out in like roughly 2 months of each other. Okay, roughly like October, and I forget if Prince of Egypt ended up did come out alongside Bugs Life or if it was moved to December. But essentially, a month, if not a month, in between these two DreamWorks movies. That's desperation, my friend. Just to spite somebody. Did all that out of spite. And here's the real crime and shame for me. Katzenberg threw away his big shot here of like, hey, I'm gonna release Prince of Egypt to kind of show them what I wanted to do, and they turned me down on this. So it really feels like screw Prince of Egypt and how important that is. We're gonna release our CG knockoff first, and then we're gonna release Prince of Egypt just to spite Disney. That really ends up spiting himself.
So, Dragon, let me just recap this really quick. What you're saying.
Oh no,
You know what's coming.
God.
What you're saying, I'm sorry, I have to do it. You set me up for it. What you're saying is that Katzenberg should not have thrown away his shot?
Yes, Tiki.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay, so one other thing no one ever talks about. The other petty thing, Katzenberg this. He ended up stealing Pixar's Guinness World Record.
Oh my god, that is super petty.
See, the world record would have been for water and animation. Because of all the rain and everything, so that Pixar would have beat him to the punch, but because ants literally the same effect too, which is even sadder. So
that genuinely kind of pisses me off, honestly.
That's the thing, because again, had it come out on time, like when it was supposed to, Pixar would have had that honor. So he just like took the little Guinness. Like, I remember as a kid going through that Guinness Book of World Records, like, hey, we're talking about animation. Wait a minute, ants. What about a Bug's Life? It also had water, and then you're like, Anyway, so there you go.
All right. Going through some comments here. Okay, Kevin Spacey is either a brilliant actor that played villains very well or a real life villain that plays characters that are like his true self or a combination of both.
Maybe both.
I'm leaning towards the latter on that one. I'm leaning towards like option 2 of 3, honestly. Especially with those weird ass annual Christmas videos.
He stopped making them, Tiki. You can't say annual if you just stop making them.
I don't care if he stopped making them, man. That was a vibe. He was
oddly though, those videos were better than the last season of House of Cards, though.
I believe that. All right, let's see. Dragon, do you remember this at all? ZNK says on the DVD there was some pokey vintage film, grainy film, poor obvious dubbing of the Pixar crew burning the movie.
Oh yeah, I believe we called him Fleabee.
Oh, nice.
Fleabee, I believe it was. I'm pretty sure it was Fleabee. They had like this great thing where we dubbed over like I think John Lasseter with like the big glasses and the goofy teeth, and it was like Joe Ranft. Yes, oh, it's really funny. So that was the Pixar's DVD prowess is still just their home release prowess is still not to be compared to, because I mean Bugs Life, even going that far back.
I know, right?
You had like the Andrew Stanley saying the super genius edition of A Bug's Life. It's delightful, so it's great.
All right, A Bug's Life and Ants are so similar that they both have a Lex Luthor actor.
That they do.
Yes, that is really. I have to wonder if that was like intentional on Katzenberg's part.
Well, they didn't know it's not intentional. Come on,
we need a Lex Luthor actor.
Well, actually, I just realized something.
Oh wait, no, that wouldn't be possible.
No. Take No, wait, hold on.
What?
Yeah, it's actually possible because Superman Lives.
Oh my god! Wait, I forget that Kevin Spacey was slated to be in.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where originally he was supposed to be Lex in that movie. So technically, it would have timed out. I mean, if it was in the industry and they heard about it, and Katzenberg has his ears.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
It's possible, but it's.
Little Blue says apparently John Ratzenberger's favorite character is P.T. Flea, which I wouldn't be surprised. And
it's a good character.
I honestly think P.T. Flea is up there for my favorite Ratzenberg characters. I think he's a delightful little guy.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Really quick, Dragon. A friend of mine once called it Pixar's most sitcom-y cast ever.
Absolutely.
I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
Okay. Katzenberg was once again showing how small, petty of a man he is. Indeed.
Yep.
Okay. Here's how much sabotage Jeffrey had in this. Originally, Woody Allen was going to voice Tantor in Tarzan. Gee, I wonder why he dropped out for a Rivals animated film.
Well, that one's probably not accurate. Casper is long gone by that point.
Okay, faster doesn't always equal better.
Actually, I'm sorry. I want to redact my earlier point from. I think ZNK actually might have had some truth to that when I said I thought he meant it a different way.
Yeah, Code Geass, I'm kind of with you there. Like, technically, like, legally, he's about as in the clear as he can be right now. But, like I said, those Christmas videos really didn't help his public image. I'm sorry. He really didn't help.
Look, all I'll say, I'll say this about Spacey, and hopefully we're just going to redirect from Spacey. The thing with Spacey is that Spacey is a fantastic actor in terms of the work that's on the screen, and with all the stuff that's in there, I don't really know heads or tails what to make. Here's what I do take away though: a guy like John Bernthal, Punisher, of course, the wonderful John Bernthal, good actor. I met the man, very really cool guy. Him saying like in interviews that basically Spacey could have treated people nicer on set. That's not saying he did anything malicious, but he's probably like at least officially malicious. But the fact that he could have been, he might not have been nice to actors.
When did Birdfall work? Oh, Baby Driver. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So he's him saying that Spacey was not a nice guy on sets. That makes me think, okay, maybe at the very least, that honestly hurts me a little more in just terms of what can be from. But oh man, Spacey's not like he's not as nice an actor as we.
Say that him not being a nice guy hurts you more than the other thing that he's.
Well, the other stuff was like an industry that made that the fact that they made that a joke for years. That's why I can't put any stock in it. Unfortunately, I'd like to, but I can't.
All right. I'm just saying that's that is a little bit like lopsided priority wise. Anyways,
no, I'm just saying that's just from a source that I can absolutely confirm.
No, I hear you. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. That for me is like where everyone's going with creepy. I'm going with that's disappointing. I'm disappointed in it morally for that. Beyond that, we go from what everything else. We just kind of compile onto that, obviously. But again, right. In a court of law, we have not done anything.
No, there. But I mean, I do want to acknowledge with the Spacey thing that in a court of law, he is like I don't even want to say unfortunately.
All I'm going to say
is, man, he gives a vibe. I'm sorry.
All I'm going to say is there's a professional distance with Spacey. Okay? Yeah, that's all I'm going to say right now. Is in terms of as much as I will praise his acting work, there's some distance there.
I mean, if you were to do some A24 movie or something, I would be cautiously intrigued about it. I'll say that much.
Okay, anyway,
all right. So yeah, Dragon, honestly, a place that I really want to start at, which I think is kind of like the heart and soul of the whole movie to a certain extent, Dragon, is the music. I think this score is one of the underrated gems in the Pixar canon. I love the music in this movie.
Of course, by the wonderful Randy Newman.
I feel like the music in this movie kind of has the vibe of a classic Western, which I love.
It's weird. I don't know if I label it a Western, but it has a little bit of that in there, so I guess you're not far off. Well, here's the thing. What they're going for, I mean, the cell line of this movie, that I think kind of speaks to the music, is that it's an epic of miniature proportions. That was right. And with that, it's more David Lynch.
Westerns, the scores in Westerns often have very sweeping moments where we're just taken in the vistas. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of that here.
But another vista comparison might be something like David Lean, with Lawrence of Arabia, a little bit.
Sure.
A little bit, so maybe a cross between a Western and a David Lean sort of.
But it's also very much got kind of a marching band quality to it, which is appropriate for, a colony of ants.
Yeah. All right, so I guess in conjunction with that, the money shot of this film, the opening, or think about it, we have the big epic of miniature proportions shot, which was honestly the hardest shot in the movie because they had to do that in one shot and they had to go from all the way back there and kind of zoom in right to the big perspective change.
I mean, just by and large, I feel like this film is a masterpiece of scale work and animation. Just literally the whole thing.
Peyton Reed's just watching it saying, man, that's a good movie.
I know, right?
Maybe one day
seriously though, from top to bottom, it's I love it's like an optical illusion of we start out, we know how small this island is. This island is basically like, the size of like a little pond in a park or something. You know what I
Well,
mean?
T, you gotta remember, it's a lot smaller than you think. Actually, when you look at it, like that's not like a big riverbed. That's like almost looks like it's. We just saw it's one tree. It's one tree with
That's
a
what
little
I'm
water
saying.
around
That's
it.
what I'm saying. It's more of a puddle, or if
Yeah,
anything.
I mean, if it's barely a foot of water.
So it's like I love how it's like we start out with that, but then the whole film like literally like zooms into that until we zoom out at the very end. It's like a magic trick, Dragon. It really is.
I mean, that brings us something we should just open with. One of the things I love in the Pixar films that this again is figuring out in a big way. The illogical logic of this world. So we're looking at the bug world from a different perspective, but again, it's like in relative to us. Where again, we're not just making it our world, but just bugs are us essentially. Like we're not like
I feel like
ants.
the closest we get is the city, but even the city is like they do it in a very creative way.
Like that's the thing. Everything has there's a logic to how everything's arranged. There, we're like, okay, there's a bar. It's in a little can.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Where it's not like okay, we just happen to have like a fully stocked bar in the anthill like we do in ants. That's the difference there. Where it's like okay, so what's the lot when we look at ants? What do we see? That's essentially the logic that we're operating. Okay, well you see them walking in a trail. Why are they walking in a trail? Okay, well they're carrying food. What are they carrying food for? Well, to feed the grasshoppers. Like this is the logic I'm talking about, man. This is falling into place for me, and I dig it. Okay, what's the inside of an anthill look like? Well, they're going to build around something like an apple core or something, like a root,
Uh huh.
and that's going to lead to like okay how they see down there phosphorescent mushrooms like okay this is all tracking for me. This is great.
Lucas Green, I don't know if this was in the Animal Kingdom version of It's Tough to Be a Bug, because that cue very much takes place like, like winding through the Tree of Life. But I do know that in the California Adventure version of It's Tough to Be a Bug, there actually is like a 2 scale replica of the tree. And you're right, it is like a little baby tree. It was very cool to see. It's like right as it's like you're kind of like winding through this rock work, and it's one of like the last things you see before you actually go into the theater.
Well, yeah, so also it's with the logic too, like all the great kind of like little observational things and research about bugs too, of like well there are male ladybugs, which led to like just what kind of slants a ladybug gonna have on its shoulders. Like everyone thinks I'm a girl.
That I remember the marketing just milked the hell out of that bit, man. The marketing was obsessed with that bit.
I remember the Times Square. They had like the big, Francis was big in Times Square.
Oh my god.
All right, so let's talk about Flick. So Flick, Dave Foley, the wonderful Dave Foley from News Radio. He's this likable, geeky inventor. Essentially, he's the spirit animal of the animators that worked on this film, and I love that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
So again, I love that. We have a lot of really good stuff with Flick here. Where also fun fact is all the inventions, the really cool the logical logic applied to the inventions of the bug world. That's all Bob Pauly. Bob Pauly coming up with like the harvester and like my favorite being the telescope. I love the little dewdrop telescope.
It's literally just like a little dewdrop in a leaf. Yeah.
That's Bob Pauly. But yeah, so I love how we bond him with the underestimated Princess Dot, and that scene is a perfect scene in this film. It's the heart of the film where he gives. This was like a big thing in the writing, Tiki. They tried to avoid schmaltz, and this is where Pixar really has a signature style to their writing, where Disney might have emphasized the schmaltz, where it's like things are going to work out for you at the end of the day. It's like like be kind to everyone, and sing to the wildlife, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Well, in this case, it's like, okay, look, he tries to give her the explanation that you're filled and brimming with potential, and he tries to use like a seed, but he can't reach it from like the harvester, so he grabs a rock, and he's trying. Okay, look, imagine this rock is a seed. Look at all this. So Flick and Dot are brimming with potential, but everyone's seeing them as the rock. So it's essentially that's kind of the metaphor we the audience are kind of getting right now. But I love that as a child, she's going like, but it's a rock. And it's sweet, it's endearing, it's kind of clever, but it's also just the Dave Foley's like, I know it's a rock. I've seen rocks. I know what rocks look like. Okay, just trying to explain it to this child. She's like, you're weird, but I like you. It's like that's Pixar in a nutshell, my friend, right there. Him trying to explain the seed. You get exactly what he's going for with the seed, but it's funny.
For sure.
Like, yeah. So, Princess Ada.
Yeah, I do like, I feel like Princess Ada is also kind of like an underrated Pixar love interest because I do like how she's very much got her own function within the story. Like she's got a sense of responsibility. It almost feels like her character feels more in line with like, like the 90s Disney princess model. You know what I mean? Where it's like she's got her own thing going on. It's not just that she's crushing on Flick the whole movie. As a matter of fact, through most of the movie, she's kind of like sort of charmed by him but also sort of annoyed by him, and then we get the whole liar revealed side of it. I think it was a really smart move to pair Ada with Dot as well, as make those two sisters, because I think you already kind of hit the nail over the head that Dot is a very important character as far as the themes go. And I think her innocence kind of like transitions into Ada's character as well, where it's through Dot that she kind of learns to see the value in someone like Flick. At least that's how I read it.
Because Flick's an optimistic guy, and that kind of spreads to Dot. Dot there's a mentor thing going on there. And on the flip side, there with Ada likes Flick. You can kind of see that. You get a sense that she likes him, but the guy just makes her job so much more difficult. Like he's almost crushing her to death when they first meet. with the grain stalks. Also, I thought it was super, super cute when they had their moment where like the antennas get a little tangled.
That is cute. Okay, Dragon, tell me, every time I watch this movie, it never ceases to make me feel just crestfallen when Flick loses all the grains.
Right?
I just every damn time I just get such a
why?
Feeling in my gut.
Because they played that moment, Tiki. They played that moment of panic so honestly. Tiki, all of us in life, Bug's life, one could say in this case, all of us have had that moment where it's like you've knocked something over, but it's too late to save it, and you just realize it right after you've turned around. You hear like the little boop 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 right before it falls. It's like he's hearing like the avalanche go on. He's like, it's just going there. He's trying to pull it up, and it's too late, and it's just the cause and effect. Hopper and the guys show up. We have that really intimidating, good lighting in this movie. Really intimidating lighting. It's like the light is bleeding through when the grasshoppers go beneath the surface. So Hopper himself, man, I love Hopper.
Hopper is like elite, like S tier Pixar villain without question. I don't think many Pixar villains have ever matched him. Like maybe Lotso and Syndrome, and that's pretty much about it, honestly.
Here's why Hopper works, man. One, again, he's got a great design. Kevin Spacey plays him so smart. Like we have,
it's like we keep talking about the real world context, but the real world context does add like a genuine sense of menace. It does it not?
Yeah, no. Yes, but I mean, I can divorce myself from that. Man.
Sure.
Look at it. He was Hopper before he was that. All right, that's.
Anyway. I hear you.
The point being, though,
technically, if you believe Anthony Rapp.
Oh, come on!
I'm just saying.
No, why you gotta bring the guy's name?
I'm just saying. Facts are facts.
Well,
that was like late '80s, Dragon.
Yeah, but you're making it dark now. Why? I keep asking you not to dwell, and you're dwelling on it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Anyway. So the whole, do you think I'm stupid? Like, that's just very intimidating. This is like,
and it's also like a classic case of gaslighting too, which I think is really ahead of its time.
Well, I mean, his whole plot beyond the whole, like, do you think I'm stupid thing? But yes.
Just the whole idea of like, like the bugs, the ants could rise up against them at any point, but, Hopper is essentially gaslighting them to believe that it's just not possible.
Exactly. So it's a really, again, he's really smart with his plan there. So he's really, it's kind of a twofold thing. One, he's really smart about how he goes about things. You're right. He is kind of the original gaslighter in that regard. Also, there's a bit of a Captain Hook quality to him with the fact that he's had an encounter with a bird, which is why he looks so gnarly with like the eye and everything. He's got the scratch mark on him. So he survived a bird, much like Captain Hook survived the crocodile. So like that's great. And even better, he has his own version of Smee with Molt. So Molt, played by the incomparable Richard Kind. And again, a lot of returning Pixar actors.
I freaking love Richard Kind in this movie, man.
Yeah, we have some of these again. We don't get Richard Kind coming back without this movie though. So it's like
I love how his story ends up with him joining the circus dragon. It's such a nice little beat at the end.
Do you know why we have so much molt in this movie?
Why?
They had this great realization in the process. I guess after the record sessions came in, they realized, oh no, we've done something terrible. We've made this molt character too hilarious and lovable to counteract, to be around the whole movie.
I mean, he does do a good job of that. He serves his role really well because honestly, Dragon, I think without him, I think the Anthopper stuff could have been a little bit too intimidating for kids. I really do think totally he's a perfect ingredient to throw into that.
Well, that's the thing. But the idea is they realize oh no, the Hopper is a smart character. Why would he keep this guy around? Why wouldn't he kill him? So he came up with this ingenious solution of he promised if I didn't promise our mother on her deathbed I wouldn't kill you, I would kill you.
That's great.
Do you understand what I'm saying? You said not to talk. Remember, Ma. Oh, it's brilliant, that's like Hopper says he's an overgrown bully, so getting the ants who obviously outnumber him into the fall in line, but you're right, that's why they do this thing annually. I love how later on we have that great scene with the grain, which I love that scene even more because looking back on it, it's an antithesis to Flick's seed comparison, if you think about it. Both characters, again, we have the guy who's these characters have leadership potential. Hopper obviously went for that. Flick was a little more behind the scenes and unconventional. Flick lacks self-confidence. Hopper oozes self-confidence.
Uh-huh.
This guy, he has imagine this grain is an ant versus Flick, imagine this seed is a rock, and you have the really sweet.
Okay, that's seriously like that metaphor. Much like how I never don't feel the grain Flick losing the grains. Dragon, I always feel that metaphor. I always feel it. I'm always oh, he's making a really good point, man. That's a really good point he's making. He's illustrating his point really well.
I love how visual it is, and also he knows that these guys gave Molt the idea to come up with the pitch him the stupid idea of let's not go back there. And he's I'm going to teach these guys a lesson. He just rips the whole little silo thing. I love that he stands there as they're being buried alive. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, let's see. Oh, that was a Bud Lucky idea. Then going to the sombrero. So originally it was a log.
Oh, I love the sombrero setting, and it feels like a Bud Lucky thing.
That's the thing. Bud Lucky loving the Western. He pitched in the Westerns, the bad guys go south of the border. So the idea is they would have mooched off of the mosquitoes who run this sombrero. Mexican resort, essentially, is the idea. Okay. So let's see. The ticking clock of this movie is always great. The idea they have until fall, till the last leaf falls. It's a good visual representation. Later on, they get a little bit more carefree. They're surfing on the leaves, and we have for the bird plan, we need the leaves to change color. So fall works great. Works out perfectly. So that's wonderful. So the conceit that they send Flick off to get rid of him, really, so they can do damage control here, and we have Flick heading to the big city to recruit some bugs so they can actually fight off the grasshoppers, and shows you that Flick is ahead of the curve, realizing we could actually take on the grasshoppers, but not in the way of we outnumber them. He's getting there, but he's not fully there yet.
I mean, I've seen a couple people bring up in the chat that they think it's a little bit of a plot hole that the ants don't realize right away that.
Well, no, it's because they're being it's psychological warfare. Hopper's
that's what gaslighting is. Yeah, it's it's.
Well, let's think about it.
Visually, the grasshoppers are incredibly intimidating. They've got those big old wings, those long legs.
And
it's I don't know. I've always bought it.
Well, that's the thing. They're scary. They're doing that. Plus, you have Thumper.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you said Thumper, my mind instantly went to the bunny rabbit.
Well, that's what he's named after.
Yes, no, that guy's fucking terrifying, man.
I always found it so delightful that he is voiced by. We reveal behind the scenes he is voiced by David Landers. So he's. So he's Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. That's
Oh
just,
God.
so that really does help as a kid. Like, okay, so he's not scary after all. He's just playing.
Right.
Regardless, though, that's the thing though. Even though it's a small number, the way they play the grasshoppers, and it does convey, is that these guys are bikers going through wreaking havoc through a town they're passing through. That's essentially how
Totally.
that's why we have like the motorcycle sounds when they fly off. So essentially that's what we're doing. So it's intimidating. If you just had like a few bike thing, but you're in a town full of a lot of people, when you have some bikers, they're still bikers. It's going to be a little intimidating. People are going to get hurt in the process there, but they just haven't realized it because they're so beaten down. It's like, we don't want any trouble. We're peaceful town folk. Okay. So Flick's going to the city. Bob Peterson is the guy who came up with the I think one of the great iconic looks from A Bug's Life. Flick wearing the tourist garb. Flick with like the roll up,
yeah. That is
which
an
you can
iconic look.
tell a little foreshadowed up with Russell.
Uh-huh.
A little bit in the background, like a little nugget there of like, it's the camper look.
I do love how the real building of the big city, it's one of the best scale gags where it's just a bunch of cardboard boxes on top of each other under an RV, if I remember correctly.
Well, not an RV, of a trailer.
Of a mobile home. Yeah. Right.
So that's what I'm saying. But yeah, it's not. It's like it really is trash because it's like boxes and stuff. And it's essentially Times Square and best gag in it. There's a couple Lion King gags in this movie. Between this and the original Toy Story Lion King gags, because in Toy Story have.
I mean, you know how huge Lion King was in the '90s, Dragon. I don't have to tell you that. You watched Sleeping Beauty.
I'm just saying it's interesting that between the first two Pixar films, we have some Lion King gags. So here we have the Lion King on Broadway is like one of the little like things in the cardboard city, and we have like the Hopper laying out. It's one of those circle of life type things. And he lays out the whole, like, the sun grows the food, the ants pick the food, the grasshoppers eat the food, and then the birds eat the grasshoppers, right, Hopper? Like that one almost got you. Anyway, so let's talk about how cool the Bug Bar is.
I mean, yeah, it is pretty cool.
Best part. The thing we really should talk about with all the locations that are near here. So the trailer, there's you know how much I'm not crazy about laying out the whole Pixar theory, but an actual practical Pixar theory that is established. That so the pizza delivery guy, Todd the pizza delivery man from Toy Story, that is his trailer because the pizza plant truck is parked next to there, and in Monsters Inc. he is living with his mother in that trailer.
And you know what? Honestly, Dragon, as far as the Pixar theory goes, I'm pretty much like it begins and ends with the truck.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to explore any theories that have to do with tying the truck's appearances together. But then honestly, when it gets into like the whole like, but the witch from Brave,
I know, right?
The whole time, and
exactly,
and cars are like an evolution of WALL-E plus human hybrids.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, a Pixar,
bro,
like a legit Pixar theory is everything but cars. Essentially, that's a legit Pixar theory. Okay, everything probably happened, just not cars, because that's in like a I don't know if you want to say it's in a multiverse or it's an alternate reality where cars are people. That's essentially it.
I mean, DNK, you mentioned Ratzenberger, but even Ratzenberger, it's like his characters are like wildly different from each other. You can't really.
That's like a doppel. That's almost like
it's not like a Bruce Campbell in the Spider-Man trilogy thing where you could like connect them and say they're the same guy. You really can't do that.
Yeah, look, Ratzenberger, it's more of just almost like a doppelganger kind of situation where it's like only vocally. It's like a vocal doppelganger situation. Anyway, yeah, I'm saying so. It's kind of neat though. The pizza plant driver was like that was the first big carryover thing, so they actually did apply. If you want to really split hairs, like okay, we didn't have like the same voice as Todd in that gag in Monsters Inc., but they had like this, the mother like whacking Randall, and it was in the same trailer.
Right.
Also, we should talk about like the landmark trailer gag though. It's beautiful. I can't look away. It's the bug and the bug zapper. Classic, classic gags. Indeed. Anyway, says the Bug Bar is kind of neat conceit. Also, it features no one ever mentions this. Technically, the first use of blood in a Pixar movie.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah,
mosquitoes with the blood, little blood drink,
little blood shots.
Yeah. Okay, so let's not barely lead in further. We got to talk about PT Flea's Circus.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously we had the toys from Toy Story first, and they're great, and in every sequel they pretty much get expanded upon, except maybe Toy Story 4. But Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3, we do a lot with that ensemble. But I think this movie was the Pixar movie to really like solidify that formula of just having a killer ensemble of supporting characters.
I mean, I'll give you this much. Okay, I'm gonna say this. I think the Toy Story characters, obviously, they have longevity for obvious reasons, but beyond that too, there's a recognition with the toys. So I think there's something a little more tactile and why they kind of make more of an impression, like have more longevity, even if we only had gotten the first Toy Story film. I think I don't know. I think there's something a little bit more memorable about them.
Well, I guess that
However,
makes sense. And honestly, I feel like as far as the plot goes, I kind of feel like a lot of them are more individually active in the plot than the circus bugs that do just kind of act as a unit, if that makes sense.
well, that's what I'm getting at, Tiki. Is that the circus bugs collectively, it does feel like okay, we're developing an ensemble that is more involved in the plot versus the first Toy Story, which is a separation of kind of plot line for them. Like, okay, Woody and Buzz are separated from the cast of the Toy Story characters until Act Three.
Uh huh.
So yeah, there's only so much you can really do there. But you're right. Basically, the other thing too is Bugs Life has to make these characters really sing in one movie.
Sure, sure.
But at this point, they knew they were, Toy Story 2 was on the horizon. So because of that, it's like, there's a little, I don't know. So.
And I pretty much think they do it. I think that, I really don't think that there's any, I mean, obviously, I think Francis and Heimlich are like the big guns in this group. Probably David Hyde Pierce Stickbug is number 3, but I think they're all really charming.
Yeah, so I just to shout them out real quick. Just it's a like stunning ensemble voice cast of talent here because we have Brad Garrett as Dim, his first Pixar role. We got Bonnie Hunt, her first Pixar roles. Rosie the Spider. We got Manny and Gypsy. That's the wonderful Jonathan Harris and Madeline Kahn. Mel Brooks fame. Francis Dennis Leary. David Hyde Pierce is Slim.
Such classic casting, man. I love that casting.
We got Tuck and Roll, and obviously we have last but not least we have Heimlich the Caterpillar, played by the wonderful Joe Ranft. And essentially, what happened there is that Joe Ranft did the scratch, like all the animators and like the animators and the board, the story men and our writers and such do the scratch so many times in animated films that basically are done before they can get the actual voice actors to record the roles. And they were trying to cast someone funnier than Joe Ranft, and they just couldn't do it. Nancy Laster, John Lasseter's wife, said, "Why don't you just cast Joe?" And it's like,
I mean, isn't that funny how that's kind of like a reoccurring thing with Pixar casting.
Yep, where are you at? Now it's I mean, Ronnie Del Carmen, he's in Elemental, It's like
exactly, yeah.
It's like that's like a lead role though. And I mean, look, Lou Romano and Ratatouille. There's a better example. Like literally the lead, the co-lead of the movie, story guy. So, but yeah.
Also, you mentioned Brad Garrett, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, first Pet Cemetery. We have a lot of first returning Pixar roles here. Brad Garrett, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Bonnie Hunt, Richard Kind. Anyway, so but yeah, so Heimlich, of course, just this hilarious, jovial, just big old cat. He's got a really appealing design, just built for comedy. Like
probably the best design in the whole movie, wouldn't you say?
Yep,
I would say it's the design in the movie. Maybe next to Hopper, arguably, that's the most iconic.
I'll give you that. And then Francis would probably be the third. But yeah, still just like the hilarious like clown act that we have with these characters. The fact they're on a circus because everyone to some degree loves the circus, and we're doing like the idea that they pair well with Flick because they're also the underdogs of our story here. They're loser circus bugs. They're a circus act, but they can't get their act together until they get Flick really can organize things. So, like, baby wants pie. Should I give it to him?
Mm-hmm.
just hilarious. And it's again the slant of the ladybug who's perceived as a lady when it is indeed Dennis Leary, one of the most very super manly, angry voice just coming out of this. Anyway, let's see. So we have Flaming Death, Tiki. How do you feel about Flaming
I mean,
Death?
It's a pretty iconic part of the movie, honestly.
What cracks me up still is the big sell. Like everyone's like so sold on this death defying act, but what's going to really bring him in after all that? What if I told you everyone was blindfolded?
God.
Did you catch the Dumbo Easter egg in this film?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to tell you what the Dumbo Easter egg is. The circus, essentially the circus wagon, a little circus car. Casey Jr. cookies. So it's a reference to the train from
Oh,
Dumbo.
okay, yeah,
And
right. You know what? I actually again in California Adventure, you go through like a big, like giant sized box of those during the Heimlich ride. So yeah, I caught it there. Yeah.
there's two funny things about that cookie box. One, as I mentioned, Casey Jr. cookies. Additional Dumbo reference from J. Grant's Bakery. Joe Grant's Bakery.
Oh God.
As in Joe Grant, the other famous Joe from the Disney side of things. Storyman extraordinaire. Been there since Dumbo. That guy.
The last names are even alarmingly similar.
Yep. But let's see the other. Of course, the other thing too. Andrew Stanton he had some interesting creative input on some of these, where he came up with the idea for the cookie box. Like when he was a kid, it would have been really cool from a marketing perspective. The idea is like if you bought all these cookie boxes and you could like little plastic, like little cardboard tabs, you connect them and make a little train out of them.
Uh
Which sounds just so darn charming, doesn't it?
huh.
And apparently, when he was looking back on things, he found that Tuck and Roll. This is purely by coincidence. After the movie was done, he kind of realized he kind of found that, oh God, he as a kid, like when he was a little boy, he drew like Tuck and Roll, like yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, it was just kind of like the design was just kind of like in the recesses of his brain.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was like an unconscious
Uh,
thing where they were designed Tuck and Roll, and he was not intentional. He looked back and he found like, oh God, I designed these guys exactly like this. It's crazy. All right, let's see. So we have this, the misunderstanding was so every movie has a sequence in Pixar. They kind of they had a name for it after Monsters Inc. But essentially, the hard sequence to correct is called Yeti's Cave, because that was a scene like in Monsters Inc. They had so many iterations of how the heck to do the Yeti's Cave thing. Like, because it's the low of lows moment, we kind of have to like how do we get back on track with their stories? There's a lot of like loops to jump through. So the big story struggle of this movie was how are we going to have the comedic misunderstanding, and like when they're going to have the bug bar, Flick's going to be in there, he's going to be really stupid if he doesn't realize like what's going on here, that they are circus bugs. That's the huge crux of the movie. If he doesn't think they're warrior bugs instead of circus bugs, we have no movie. So
right, right.
so they happened upon less is more. Like, okay, what if Flick did not see everything that happened? What if he got pushed out in the action, but he saw the aftermath of them standing over all the unconscious bodies when the whole bug bar like tipped over?
Uh-huh.
Genius. It's great.
And I mean, as far as the liar revealed thing goes, I mean, I think this movie does it well for a couple reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, they don't really dwell on it, but also, this is like a pretty key difference that you just kind of hit on, where it's not like the main character is intentionally lying. Like by the time he realizes the situation, he's already made his bed. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I think that little twist just makes the whole trope a lot more easy to digest. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It's twofold with me with the liar reveal. One, it feels like the liar reveal is like this is like the original liar reveal. Like, this is
This
like
character
okay,
is like one of the original liar reveals for sure.
like if you're gonna have one that's exempt from like it's the liar reveal, it's gonna be this movie for me.
Uh-huh.
It's like okay, if you're gonna do a liar reveal, this is the way to do it, and everything else then we can kind of judge a little harshly. But let's keep it there. Anyway, the other thing though is I think what really helps it, and I think David Hyde Pierce's presence helps this as well. It's like it's a Frasier style comedic misunderstanding. There's a lot of Frasier comedy and like how the misunderstanding occurs there, where there'll be like the two characters with two very different understandings of the situation, completely unaware. It keeps building and building to the revelation. Like think about this. Flick tells Tuck and Roll, who really can't speak a lick of English, he tells Tuck and Roll
Right.
exactly what's going on, saying like, and we need.
Well, whatever.
As I said, they have no idea, and they're riding on Dim, and Dim doesn't fully get it either. There's the fact that like they know that they're told what's going on, but they have no idea. So it's not like Flick didn't tell him, so he's completely off guard. And then when he's like giving the big, it's like and then like sorry. Francis is going, like, we're gonna knock them dead, and they're all like cheering. Then we have Joe Ramp's big scene. So Joe Ramp specifically went out of his way to board the really one of the funniest scenes in the movie, which is Mr. Soyle, the Roddy McDowall character, puts on a little play to greet the warrior bugs at the colony, and the scene in which we see the reactions of the circus bugs realizing why they're there from this children's like art project, which has
Oh
like
my God,
we thought we draw one of it was suggested we draw one of you dying so it'd be more dramatic, and it's Heimlich like cut in half and Heimlich like losing the color in his cheeks. Like that's all Joe Ranft magic, Tiki. All that. And then the whole like, and we die, and like that's it's flawless. So just that again, that's Pixar to a T, man. That's comedy gold right there. Like Flick's like, can you just do me a favor, guys? Just squish me now. Just squish me now because I'm done for. Literally have a character in an animated kids film. This is like yes, a suicide, please. Just just do it. You know.
Oh my God. I would like to unalive myself right now.
All right, so the bird is really cool, man.
The bird is such a cool plot point, man. It really is.
I love the
you already kind of like illustrated the whole Captain Hook dynamic with Hopper, which is great.
I just love the idea, the notion that from a bug's POV, we have like from a distance for us, it's a cute little bird, cute little sparrow, whatever kind of bird it is, and from a bug's perspective, he's in the middle of Jurassic Park right now. He's gonna get eaten by this thing. It's terrifying, and
totally.
And it moves super.
The anti-wormy in a way.
I mean, the really scary thing too is how fast the bird moves. When you think about it, like, something that big moves that fast.
Also, like I always forget how fucking horrific Hopper's villain demise is.
We'll build to that.
We'll build to that. I don't even want to say death because we don't actually see him die. But
come on, what do you want to see? Really?
Well, I'm just saying, like the situation he's in is pretty fucking grim and dark and horrific.
You want to give the kids therapy, don't you? Anyway, so as you know, they had like the big bird epiphany. It's just this hilarious comedy of errors thing where it goes from comedy of errors to heroism. Here we got to save Dot from the bird, but in doing so, it's like, oh look, the caterpillar is like he was acting as live bait. And, like that was initially the plan, but now Heimlich is like screaming for his life, like oh god. As he's going to be eaten by the bird. It's just them like it's cowardice being perceived as heroism, which is essentially that's how we turn our liar thing around here, where it's like they're becoming ingratiated into the colony, and they're actually like Francis becomes a den mother while he's laid up with the broken leg. We have like all like sprained leg, whatever. They love the applause. They love the attention. They love like the idea of, like we're kind of getting what we want out of this. And Flick's done all the legwork here. We're just basically playing a part. So we're, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we get to the whole Seventh Samurai of it all. It's.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we already mentioned kind of Hopper going south of the border and everything. It's just kind of like a cool idea. And but him just saying like that one ant stood up to me. So this time we should hit on. We have a 3-act structure in a sense of Flick versus Hopper, and they only share 3 scenes together.
No, yeah. I'm glad you're bringing this up because it is very effective for sure.
Yeah.
Just the fact that like they don't share a lot of screen time, but like Flick very much gets in his head.
Remember, it was again just how imposing Hopper is. Like everything's like again him with the gaslight. They're like, "Hey, first rule of leadership. Everything's your fault." To Ada, making her feel like crap. And then you have just that wonderful chilling bit where he grabs Dot by the head. Which, by the way, it's surprising they were able to get away with that because on TV, on broadcast tennis practices back in the 90s, that was a no-no. You couldn't do that. But again, it's a movie, so I guess they're fine.
It's a movie.
Yes. So Hopper, him just like, Flick says, hey, let her go because she's threatening, he's threatening the little girl with Thumper. And he stands up to her. And we pay this off perfectly in Act 3 where he says, like, you want her? Just walks up, holding her by the head. Come and get her. And just Flick, he just kind of cowers. And you feel bad for him because that's a tough position to put anyone in. Hopper's really intimidating there. You don't know. You get it. And his heart is in the right place, but it put any of us in that position. So, and then, of course, he's still thinking about Flick in Act 2 there, where he's thinking there was that one ant, and that Flick is forward-thinking enough. Like, this inventor guy is kind of ahead of the curve here. This guy's close to figuring out our con here, and we can't let that happen.
I mean, that is basically like the end game for Hopper if that happens.
And because of this, remember, because of this, Hopper's plan is I'm going to kill the queen. I'm going to kill that little girl's mother. I'm going to kill Phyllis Diller.
Right, right.
You know, yeah. By the way, Phyllis Diller really wonderful in this as well.
She is. She is.
You know, just to a T, just her characterized self in this movie. And yes, of course, yeah, we were mentioning we have the liar reveal, which is like the fact that we had a really good plan here, but it's the fact that Flick's involved. There's no confidence, and they just kind of eliminate. So I think that's kind of the message. That's the meta kind of context of the movie there, where it's like you can have really good ideas if you're operating without fear, and then there's going to be that thing if you get in your own head, or if there's that self doubt, or like everyone you're convinced everyone's going against you. It's gonna lead to they throw in the towel when you didn't have to.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's see. So then we have the seed gesture. So we have Dot kind of confronting her fears, like she outruns Thumper, and she flies. She flies now, Tiki.
She flies now.
Yeah. So then Dot finds Flick as he's going off to join the circus. Essentially, he's going for the carny lifestyle, depending on how you look at it. And we have this wonderful payoff there, where it's completely visual. They don't even say a word. He brings her. She flies off, brings a little pebble to him, and this is like, thanks, Dot. And I just love the circus bugs are scratching.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
must be an ant thing. It's great. It's sincere. It's sincere without being like wishy washy. You know, without being schmaltzy. You know, it's great. All right, let's see. I guess jumping kind of to the climax there, we have this great idea of the circus bugs or the diversion.
Yep.
Yep, you know, them like perform the dinner and a show essentially for the grasshoppers as we enact the bird plan. Tiki, tell them about the bird plan.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it's very clever, and just the whole scale of it and everything, and it kind of puts Flick's inventing skills to the test.
It's just really nice that it's like at the end of the day, all you need is like just like a little bird full of like essentially Girl Scouts to not Trojan horse, but kind of scarecrow the grasshoppers away, you know.
But of course, the rain is, I think, one of the ultimate matchstick moments, Dragon.
Well, speaking of matchstick moments,
I mean, you cannot say it's not a matchstick moment. It is
no, you're right. No, the bird. No, well, technically, the matchstick moment is when the rock falls in and doesn't knock over the thing for the bird.
Oh, I guess so. But
it's fun. Here's the thing.
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like this climax is kind of like, instead of one big matchstick moment, we've kind of got matchstick moments like happening all over the place.
Yeah, we have three matchstick moments. Okay, we have three. Okay, we have the actual one, which is directly supposed to mirror like the match from Toy Story, which is like okay, when the rock falls down, it's going to knock over the thing. The bird's going to go without a hitch. That's one. Then we have the literal matchstick moment with P.T. Flea lighting the bird on fire. Well, that's going to complicate things. And then it's like, okay, we've defeated the bad guy. We're going to send him soaring away, and then the rain falls.
Mm-hmm.
Just great. And also we had that inspiring moment, though. Two inspiring moments. I think I'd feel terrible if we glazed over. So one earlier on in the movie, Flick flying on. We got to mention the dandelion thing. Dandelion.
It's probably the most Disney scene in the whole movie, and I don't say that like as a as an insult at all. It's like I say it is like it's very much like the kind of scene that kind of like exemplifies Disney at its best. You know what I mean? It's inspirational. It's instantly iconic. The music is great.
Yeah, and it's also too. It's like Flick kind of being inventive. Like, how am I going to get down there? Well, I'm going to do something no one else would think of doing. You know, he's going to grab a little dandelion seed flower thing. Anyway, so the other inspired moment was like like when Flick calls out that we're standing up with the grasshoppers, and you know it, don't you? He's taking a bit of a beating there, and all the ants band together. They lock arms together. They outnumber them. Like, and thank you, crowd team. Like, you ants stay back, and they all go for him, and it's wonderful. Let's see. Okay, you're right. So the rain falls, and this is a huge. It's basically like minivans falling on the ants with how this rain falls. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is. It really is crazy, especially with the time. I mean, this was like a solid couple years before Shrek, even.
I mean, it's one thing. There's rain, and then there's what about rain from the perspective of the ant, which is going to be just like almost like a bombing going on. Like, oh my god, it's just so difficult and so crazy. And I think there's like this weird trippy optical effect where like the rain's technically falling backwards when they're going through the riverbed. And it's even better when you think about this. The riverbed in Bug's Life is like the kind of the trestle run that Buzz Lightyear does in Toy Story 2, which is like it's the empty riverbed, and this is it full of water. So it's like we kind of saw it empty at the start of the movie, looking like the Grand Canyon. Now it's like it's a dam ready to burst almost, you know.
Sure, sure.
So all that's cool, and like we have this, Ada. You think Ada is gonna fall into the background a little bit in this movie, and she comes in big time for the climax where she's flying around saving Flick. We lose. As I was pointing out one of our commenters earlier, we lost Slim. In, like all the twigs. Like, I'm the one with eyeballs.
Oh my god.
Just great. Anyway, so Flick has one last really great idea, and it's a Die Hard moment, my friend, where Flick tells Ada to hide, and he goes essentially to the bird's nest, and like Hopper's like, let me guess, this one has another little bird trick. Yep, with a smile on his face. Yep, and oh god, Hopper's fate, man. So Hopper's like, what a bunch of little girls there, hi girls, and it's like just this
I
deafening.
love that. I love Kevin Spacey's performance there.
Oh, it's great. So just the cockiness, and
Uh-huh,
then,
uh-huh.
but then he's doomed. Then he's like the birds just grabs him. It's his worst nightmare, and how can it get any worse for him? It's not just one bird, my friend. Also, I kind of caught this in the rewatch too. They mentioned like Hopper, like he went down the gullet of the original of like a blue jay, and he clawed his way out. That's how he survived. But there's no clawing his way out of this one.
No, no. I
The
mean, again, just the implication here is just like almost more brutal than actually killing him.
Yep, like braver birds, but no broken wings. So yeah, we have like these three baby birds that are adorable from a distance, but up close, it's a horrifying fate. And the fact that it's like a little bit teased, Flick and Ada looking away kind of says all right
uh,
before it
uh,
happens. They can't bear to watch, and it's like, oh god, we're implying we're gonna bisect our villain in like three places here just by tearing him literally. We're gonna George Romero this guy. We're gonna tear him limb from limb for lunch. I guess for dinner because it's raining out. But we're gonna tear them from for a meal, and then we pull a Bambi. We go like little happy
yeah,
go lucky.
pretty much, pretty much.
Oh, but seriously, that's such a horrible, traumatic way to go.
Like I feel like it gets forgotten about when it comes to people talking about like brutal Disney villain deaths. I really do. Everyone focuses on like, like the Claytons of the world, but this is like up there with that.
And this is me reading too much into it, but we kind of foreshadow it maybe with Tuck and Roll. They pull off his antenna, so we're kind of dismembering Hopper already a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think that maybe is a little bit of a stretch. I see what you're.
No, I know. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting that we. I was just kind of it's kind of cute though. We can remove the antenna and we use it as a prop layer, which is even funnier.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, then we have kind of a epilogue here, which is like we say our goodbyes. It's a tearful goodbye, and you know what, man, Bonnie Hunt. Unfortunately, of all the circus performers, she seems to kind of she probably gets the least to do.
Uh-huh.
But you know what? She has a really nice moment at the end here where she's kind of tearfully saying goodbye to Flick, and everyone's feeling kind of the emotion. She's like, Flick, you're really goofed up. Thanks. It's like, man, that's really nice. It's her saying you goofed up and you improved all of our lives. Thank you. It's like this comedic misunderstanding is the tide that's lifted all ships. The gift of the rock and everything coming back must be a circus bug thing, and it's just real nice. Flick gets his applause, he gets the girl, and we get fireworks. I mean, and more importantly, above all else, Heimlich gets his wings.
Yeah, classic.
Heimlich became a beautiful butterfly.
I mean, it's such a great payoff, Dragon. It really is.
Oh yeah, indeed it is. And then we have wonderful Randy Newman song playing during the credits. We have "Time of Your Life."
Mm.
I listened to this so much as a kid. I loved it. So they have the outtakes, which the first time they've done the outtakes, as I said, David Lander's a thumper and everything, the line flubs. And when they recorded the outtakes, and I wonder if this is a tradition for like Monsters Inc. as well, they waited until the last session to get the actors in there, just to have them go out on a really good time. So just have them do outtakes.
Right, yeah.
So let's see. I guess we have comments we should read through.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really know where to. We kind of lost track of them. So let me know if there's any in particular that you want me to shout out, because I feel like there's so many of them. We don't really have time to go through every one that we haven't read.
Okay, Z and K. Swish, swish, clang, clang. It's what the stick bug says. It's what Slim says. Whenever he's being used as a prop sword. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Let's see. I guess Warp Monarch. The bird is a T Rex, the hopper, and the other bugs. Yes.
For sure,
And,
for sure.
there we go. Okay, last one. Like a little blue. The outtakes in mind for Toy Story. They didn't have. Yeah, that's right. So they had it. They had outtakes in mind for Toy Story, but they didn't have time because again, Toy Story is very much like there was like you were. Toy Story and Toy Story 2 were very much things where all hands were on deck. Toy Story 2, as you know, had the whole RM Star thing, but they did find time to do the outtakes on that though. So that was like a thing they were trying to do for a number of movies. Toy Story, I think, was like they're a little green and probably only had so much time.
Okay. Z and K said Turning Red and Lightyear last year would have been good fits from a throwback standpoint, and one from a movie within a movie standpoint. Yeah, Turning Red probably would have been fun. I could see that. And Lightyear just because the movie within the movie for sure.
It's also
All right.
really funny that I guess the TV version of Bugs Life when you had the DVD, they had like both the full version of the outtakes. Woody showing up like with the clapperboard.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yes, and it's good. Of course, then paid off in Toy Story 2's outtakes where we have like oh, so it's so great they're doing a Bugs Life 2. What they're doing a 2 movie, but it's not a Bugs Life 2. Well, wait, what 2 is it? And then that's Buzz Lightyear chopping poor flicking Heimlich.
Oh my god. And then of course the Bugs Life parody in the Cars credits.
Even
That's
better.
probably one of the best things about the original Cars movie.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as my final thoughts go, like I said, I do think that this movie is pretty underappreciated nowadays. I feel like people just kind of push it under the rug as like, oh, it's the one movie from Pixar's early era that's not an absolute like banger 5-star masterpiece. But you know what? I still think it's a 4-star movie, if anything, and it's like a solid 8 out of 10. Not to mention the historical value behind it, the fact that we did get a lot of technical breakthroughs from it. It's got a really solid cast of characters. It's got a top tier villain, like one of the best in the entire Pixar canon. So yeah, Dragon, more people need to be given this some love. I really think so. I really think it's time for a Bugs Life reevaluation.
Indeed. That's the thing with the Bugs Life. Like, I never really looked at it as like a lost gem because I always kind of had an appreciation for it. But admittedly, I do acknowledge it got lost in the shuffle because of all the milestones and kind of boons we had with
I mean, Will
Pixar.
Blue just gives an
But
example right here where it was left off, the Incredibles trailer with the from the studio that brought you Toy Story, Monsters Inc. It's like, are we forgetting
I
something?
know as a kid that always drove me nuts. Where it's like, what about that one? But that's the thing though. It's this thing where to me though is like I knew Bugs Life and I've always appreciated it, but it just kind of as the movies kept coming out, it's like it just kind of kept getting pushed farther and farther back. But that's the thing.
But I mean, I feel like right now with the level of quality that we're at with Pixar and having stuff like The Good Dinosaur and Brave and the Cars sequels, it's I think that's more than enough to kind of like push Bug's Life to at the very least the top half of the list, right? Is that fair?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
I
like
mean, it's not top tier, but I would say it's at least in the top half.
okay, I guess what I'm saying is I think it's interesting that it's like looking back on 25 years later. I mean, yeah, it is absolutely it's an underrated gem. That's something that's like I never thought of that in that context. But looking back, like yeah, a lot of time has passed. A lot of Pixar movies have come out, and you know what? Yeah, it does need appreciation. It has kind of become a lost art of sorts, and it's something that people need to look into. It's like Bugs Life. It's always been like kind of that just that it's just basically a funny Pixar movie. You know, it's just something really pure and simple about it that also is just kind of really endearing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So of course, happy anniversary, Bugs Life. Happy anniversary.
Indeed. All right, let me make sure I have everyone here. Big thanks to Little Blue, Z and K, Warped Monarch, Theme Park Priest, Lucas Green, Code Geass, and I think that's it, Dragon. Am I missing anyone?
Okay, let's see. ZNK, Kodias, Theme Park Priest. Luke, you said Lucas Green. Let's see. Was it Little Blue?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's everybody. Thanks for stopping by, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate the turnout tonight, guys. All right, well, let's see. This coming week, we have the return of the Batcave Beyond. Dragon, what else is in the works for this week? Phineas
Well, we have
Ferb, of course, as always.
Batcave Beyond, Phineas and Ferb, and well, there may or may not be another anniversary thing, but I'm not going to promise anything. And we have Invincible coming at you.
Yep. All right, well, stay tuned for all that, folks. Have a good night. See y'all later.
But it's a rock.